We're 150 years old this year. The Keeper's House, boat building, archaeology lab, Maritime Center, Coast Guard barracks, oil house and tower. Oil house and tower are all original. 165 feet tall. We're the sixth tallest lighthouse in the nation here. Keeper's House is reconstructed due to a fire at one point. Tower and oil house all original. The Fresnel lens is original, all but 19 pieces. 9 feet tall, 2 tons in weight, 6 feet in diameter with 370 pieces of glass. The lens was created in Paris, France and shipped over 1871 to 74, sometime during the construction, of course. 8 landings along the way, very accessible, very unique. The landings are fairly large, and the stairs have 2 railings all the way up. We can get 2 people going both ways on the landings. We don't promote that, but it is that accessible.
And when you come into this museum lighthouse, you get one of these. I thought this was a wonderful idea. You can purchase commemorative bricks with your words or sayings on it, and the money you pay to purchase your brick and have it placed here helps fund the Lighthouse and Museum. I was a lighthouse keeper across the big pond in Britain from 1974 to 1997, so 23 years. So it's been a long while since I was a lighthouse keeper, so you're going to hear some heavy breathing going up these steps. And I'm coming in as a tourist, not as a lighthouse keeper, but no doubt I will be looking at everything with lighthouse keeper's eyes. I'm gonna
the oil to go. How heavy is it?
25 pounds, I think.
Ouch.
We had similar landlights such as this one, where you lived with your wife and family, but we also had what we called tower rocks. They were great big granite towers out to sea, where nowhere to go and stretch your legs. So you lived inside this tower with 2 other men, not of your choice, so there was 3 keepers. You did 28 days on, 28 days off. Out of 7 or 8 rooms in this tower, you would have just 2 rooms dedicated to the keepers. The others were full of machinery and fuel and stuff like that to keep the light going. The 2 rooms for the keepers was the kitchen stroke living room, and the other room, of course, was the bedroom. In the bedroom you had curved bunks called banana bunk, and all you had for privacy was curtains. It was an endless cycle of watchkeeping. Somebody was up and on watch 24 hours a day, and living in such close confines, you had to be of mellow character and be able to get on with each other. A sense of humour helped. Lightkeeper's log. Keepers stored tools and other supplies they needed to keep the light shining here in the office. In addition to keeping the light on, the keepers kept logs to record what was happening at the station. These logs have preserved much of the light's early history and included detailed entries. November the 2nd, 1874, a flight of ducks demolished 2 panes of plate glass, chipping a lens prism. May the 19th, 1876, light out from about 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. due to the neglect of the second assistant. He stated he was overcome by sleep. January the 11th, 1879, an earthquake passed through the station, causing the building to shake and windows to rattle. The tower rocked, and for a moment the keeper on watch thought the entire structure would tumble down. January the 31st, 1884, a 3-masted schooner went on the North Breakers and will be a total loss. August the 11th, 1908, lightning struck the tower, breaking call bell and wires running into the dwelling, tore out part of the front door frame. Just before sunset on October the 15th, 1874, keeper William Russell made his climb up the new St. Augustine Lighthouse to light the lard oil lamp for the first time. The last lamplighter. After the lighthouse was automated in 1955, the United States Coast Guard, the USCG, hired civilians to tend the light. These posts were called lamplighters. In addition to maintaining the lighthouse, lamplighters were responsible for the 48 channel markers along 40 miles of waterways. In 1968, former lighthouse keeper and tender ship crew member Henry Hank Mears was appointed lamplighter at the St. Augustine Lighthouse. He served as our lamplighter for 21 years, 1968 to 1989. You had to stay on the ball. You had to take care of the lights from Matanzas Inlet all the way to Palm Valley. I'd come every day, once in a while clean the lens, every 133 days change the bulb, and keep an eye on the generator. That was lamplighter Henry Hank Mears. His most challenging experience as a lamplighter was in 1986 when a vandal's bullet tore through the original first order Fresnel lens. 19 prisms were damaged, leading to the first Fresnel lens restoration project. In 1989, the position of lamplighter was dissolved due to cutbacks, and the job of maintaining the light fell to members of the US Coast Guard Auxiliary. At one time, Anastasia Island was covered in flocks of migrating birds who became confused by the bright light and often dashed themselves against the lighthouse lantern. Headkeeper William Harn used his hat to protect his face from thousands of wings. Later, lighthouse keepers would eat the birds that hit the glass. Keepers also went hunting to put food on the table. Strong women have had an impact here for centuries. Kate Harn became second assistant keeper in 1889 at a salary of $400 a year after her husband, headkeeper William Harn, passed away in the keeper's house of tuberculosis. Cats can't fly. Cracker Daniels, son of lightkeeper C.D. Daniels, found out cats can float when he attached a parachute to his sister's cat, Smokey, and dropped him from the top of the lighthouse. Smokey survived the descent, but the cat was very frightened and went missing for several weeks. Cracker's sister Wilma did not learn of this dastardly deed until 50 years later, when he told her during a visit to the lighthouse. Extracts from the General Instructions to All Lightkeepers, 1881. The keeper is responsible for the care and management of the light and for the station in general. He must enforce a careful attention to duty on the part of his assistants, and the assistants are strictly enjoined to render prompt obedience to his lawful orders. In the absence of the keeper, his duties will devolve upon the assistant present who is next in rank. No keeper shall leave his station without informing the assistant present who is next in rank of his intention and of the probable length of his absence, and no assistant shall leave without the previous knowledge and consent of the keeper, but this regulation will not justify the keeper in denying an assistant any proper leave of absence. All keepers must acquaint themselves with the workings of the apparatus in their charge. Upon any doubtful point, questions must be asked. When the station is visited by an officer or employee of the lighthouse establishment, especially while the machinist or lampist is there, the keepers must take pains to acquire knowledge of every detail regarding the mechanism of the apparatus. Ignorance upon any point will not be considered as an excuse for neglect of duty. Lights must be lighted punctually at sunset and must be kept burning at full intensity until sunrise. All preparations must be made early, that there may be no delay in lighting. When the light is extinguished in the morning, the keeper must hang the lantern curtains and immediately begin to put the apparatus in order for relighting. While doing this, the linen aprons provided for the keeper's use must be worn, that the lens may not suffer from any contact with the wearing apparel. The illuminating apparatus must be carefully covered before the cleaning is begun. The lens and the glass of the lantern must be cleaned daily and always kept in the best possible condition. Before beginning to clean the lens, it must be brushed.
Before the electric light came along, well, sort of concurrent with the electric light in some cases, we had the old Hood petroleum vapor burner. This was a larger version of what a lot of people would recognise as a tilly lamp. So you've got a container holding paraffin and another container which held compressed air. You had to pump it yourself, not very compressed, about 80 pounds pressure. This air then forced the paraffin through a tube. Now this tube was heated to cherry red, and the paraffin then under pressure went through this tube, whereupon it vaporized, and the resultant vapor then used to light a rather large mantle. Came in varying sizes, but the ones I was used to mostly was something like about 4 or 5 inches in diameter, quite large mantles. They used to give quite a lot of light, somewhere in the region of 100,000 candle power. Once the thing was lit, just like the tilly lamp, then a pair of tubes alongside would keep the vaporizing tube, the actual tube that the paraffin travelled in. 2 other tubes with very small jets would play flames onto that tube all the time, keeping it hot and thus vaporizing all the paraffin as it came along. Just like the old-fashioned blow lamp in days gone by, the little hole at the end used to get sooted up, and you had to be standing alongside regularly, at least an hour, go along and have a look at it. And sometimes, of course, that little hole would need pricking out in order to let the the jet of paraffin vapour come out at its most. If you left it too long, sometimes it could bung up, and if that did happen, then the whole thing would cool off, and the next thing you've got a virtual flamethrower. So it was incumbent on every keeper on a station with a hood petroleum vapour burner to either, what I used to do was sit in the lantern with my books and bits and pieces in the night time. Not only was it warm, but there was plenty of light there as well. And you hadn't got too far to go to wind the weight up every so often to keep the lens rotating. And if the light showed any signs of dimming, well, you was right on hand with the little pricker needle then to clean out the thing. But if you think in terms of a Tilly lamp with the mantle, and then increase that in size by about 10, and you'll have about the smallest version of the hood petroleum vapour burner.
Easy going down.
I couldn't get a straight walk around into the film because of the people. But that shows you it's being used. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, they're all interested in what they're doing, aren't they?
Yeah. I think he added a few more years on that.
Where's Tim?
She stopped it there.
Don't try walking up. I think that the undertaker is sort of carrying on.
Okay.
Now they just drop what you did.
The Victorian Lighthouse Keeper's Parlour. The parlour was a formal area where guests were received and entertained. All of the family's finest items and furnishings would have been in this room to show off the best of the family. As the head lighthouse keeper, William Harn and his family would have had a stand-in in the community and an expectation of community involvement. One way they met this expectation was by receiving guests on a regular basis. William Harn was the principal lighthouse keeper here from 1875 until his death from tuberculosis in 1889. Prior to working as a lighthouse keeper, he served in the US Army, becoming a decorated Union soldier during the American Civil War. His army service also provided him the opportunity to meet the young Kate Skillen when he was stationed at Fort Moultrie, South Carolina, along with Kate's father, James Skillen, an ordnance sergeant. As Harn's health deteriorated from tuberculosis, he became increasingly reliant on Kate, by then his wife, to assist him with his lighthouse keeping duties. Kate Skillen Harn was born in Maine in 1844 and met her husband in Charleston, South Carolina, where her father, Ordnance Sergeant James Skillen, served in the US Army with William Harn. Despite the 10-year age difference, a romance sprang up. Kate and William married in 1863 and moved here in 1875. In total, they had 6 children, all daughters. Kate was well known for her hospitality and help with the lighthouse keeping duties as William became more and more ill from tuberculosis. After William's death in 1889, her hard work and hospitality paid off as the community petitioned the US Lighthouse Service to hire her on as an assistant keeper until she could secure her husband's pension and support her family. In the keeper's logbook, as she takes over as second assistant keeper, her name changes from Mrs. Harn to simply Kate, which was a measure of her change in status. Kate remained in St. Augustine until 1892, when she and her children moved back to Maine. Ida Harn was the fourth of William and Kate Harn's 6 daughters. Born in 1873 in Charleston, South Carolina, she moved to St. Augustine with her family in 1875, when her father became lighthouse keeper. She attended school and was responsible for house chores such as cooking, cleaning, sewing, and looking after her younger sister. She saw many changes to St. Augustine during her time here. This area is called Wrecked. It says start on the first floor, learn about underwater archaeology, and dive down into the basement to learn more about shipwrecks from the American Revolution. The Wrecked exhibit focuses on a loyalist shipwreck that occurred in and about 1782. And this has been known as Stormwreck because they can't find a name for it. The divers brought up lots of artifacts from this wreck, and these included iron and copper cauldrons, pewter spoons and plates. There was kettles, ceramic and glass fragments, shoe buckles, candlesticks, bricks. There was a flintlock Queen Anne pistol, 3 Brown Bess muskets, 2 of which were loaded. There's been thousands of lead shot brought up, military buttons, there's a cask of nails, there's tools, navigational equipment, ship's hardware and rigging elements. There's the ship's lead deck pump, a bronze ship's bell. There was a 4-pounder cannon and a 9-pounder carronade, which they believed to be the second oldest in the world. And after several seasons of this excavation, they believe the vessel was a ship involved in the December the 18th, 1782 evacuation of Charleston at the end of the American Revolution, carrying loyalists, refugees and troops to St. Augustine, which was a loyal British colony at the time. This was the final British fleet to leave Charleston, and when it arrived between December the 24th and 31st, 1782, as many as 16 vessels were lost on the sandbar in front of the St. Augustine Inlet. Ship's bell. Today, when a ship is at sea, certain areas have to be manned 24 hours a day, such as the bridge and engine room. Likewise, even in the 18th century, the bridge and lookout posts were manned 24 hours per day. Ship's bells were used to keep time for sailors' duty watches before mechanical clocks were widely available. The duty schedule was marked by ringing the bell in a familiar pattern over the course of a watch. The pattern would be repeated with each 4-hour duty change. Carronade. This 9-pound carronade is one of the few artifacts recovered from the shipwreck that provides a direct clue as to the ship's origin. Because a manufacturer date of 1780 is inscribed on the trunnion, the ship could not have been wrecked before that date. The Carron Company of Falkirk, Scotland, first developed the carronade in 1778 as a lightweight, short-range weapon with a large bore that allowed the gun to fire a heavy shot relative to its size. This made the weapon especially deadly in close-range fighting. in memory of the crew of United States Coast Guard E-2C radar surveillance aircraft number 3501, Lieutenant Dwayne E. Stenbach, Lieutenant Craig E. Lerner, Lieutenant Paul E. Perlt, Aviation Electronics Technician First Class Matthew H. Baker, United States Coast Guard, who gave their lives in the war on drugs. August 24, 1990. Let not their sacrifice be in vain. We're going up there. The tag on the cat's collar says, "In honour of Judith Thorne, 1945 to 2018. Then it was all the way around the building, up these stairs, to the last exhibit, which was Shrimping Ain't Easy, and it says explore stories of local families who helped create the shrimping and boat building industries of northeast Florida. Right, we'll go and have a look.
Stay right here. See if we can get it.
Blackout. September 1939. War begins in Europe. President Roosevelt declares, "America will not fight unless attacked." However, Roosevelt furtively sent vital supplies to the Allies via the shipping lanes. On the American home front along the eastern seaboard, navigational aids still shine brightly. Lighthouses are the largest and brightest. Beachside homes and businesses operate as usual. No one thinks to dim the lights. U-boat commanders, they're the German submarines, called the months that followed the second happy time because of the ease of targeting Allied ships silhouetted against bright coastal lights. To discourage U-boat attacks, Florida Governor Holland issues a blackout. He commands, "No direct light be visible from offshore." The brilliant 1,000-watt bulb at St. Augustine Lighthouse is replaced with a 50-watt version. For 4 miles inland, lights in businesses, homes, and automobiles are dimmed. Before the candy-striped tower that we have today, another lighthouse stood watch. The first St. Augustine Lighthouse began as a series of Spanish watchtowers circa 1586. In 1737, the Spanish adapted an existing coquina, that's shell rock, and wooden tower to replace these lookouts. Archival records are inconclusive as to when a light was exhibited, but the structure was regularly referred to as a lighthouse or beacon in nautical charts, maps and logbooks dating to the British period 1763 to 1783. Florida became a U.S. territory in the 1820s, and the U.S. Congress appropriated $5,000 to build a lighthouse at St. Augustine. Florida's first official American lighthouse was lit in April 1824. It served until 1874, finally crumbling into the ocean during a storm in 1880. Today the foundation stones remain visible at low tide. Now across to the conservation area. In this building you can often see conservators at work behind the glass, preserving Florida's history. Artifacts lost on shipwreck sites typically undergo chemical changes while under the sea. The salts absorbed may cause other chemical reactions such as corrosion. Now, conservation involves many stages, and artifacts may require years of specialized care before everything is stabilized and they are ready to go into a museum environment.